Here we go. So guys, a bit of a different video. Usually around this time you would be watching the podcast, and the podcast isn't here. I've kind of spoken a little bit about this on Twitter and on Twitch, but I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about why we've stopped the podcast, whether it's actually over, because I don't think I've been clear enough about that stuff on Twitter. So I want to be clear about where we're at, and just give you guys an explanation really to what's going on, what I'm doing, what the future is, all of that stuff. So. Is the podcast over as a weekly show? Yes, it's over as a weekly show. That doesn't mean it's stopped. We will have podcasts. We've already got one booked. The next one is on the 26th of March, and it's with Carlo. That'll be the week after 250. Hopefully he wins, and we'll have a good podcast. But just a bit of I guess insider info to how the podcast works, what goes into it. I mean, it's a 15-hour weekly process. It seems like a 2-hour, 2.5-hour video, and we just upload it, and that's all it is. But really, there's way more that goes into it. It takes time to book the guests. It takes time to prep. It takes time to record. It takes time to do a watch through. So I have to do a watch through to protect monetization in the channel, make sure nothing happens on camera because it's automated. So I need to protect us because podcasts have got demonetized in the past. Then there's the exporting process, and then I've got to upload it. So the way it usually works is we start recording at 10 p.m. my time. And that's the start of a 6 to 7 hour process from starting to record to getting it live. So if I'm lucky, I usually go to bed at 5 a.m. on a Saturday. That's the truth. So that's like the earliest I think I've ever been to bed during a podcast weekend on a Saturday night. So we've kept it up as long as we can. Obviously, there's sustainability stuff. There's stuff going on with me outside of content and 2K and all of that stuff, which is just needing my time a little bit more now. So I can't really be in a position right now where I can just give up every weekend again. And obviously you guys got to remember, on the Sunday we then do the watch back with you guys. We're in the chat, so that's another 2 to 3 hours that we dedicate to it. So it's just a lot of work. It seems like I said, it's just a video that we just upload, but actually we put a lot into it. A lot goes into just doing a podcast itself. Like, we've had episodes where I've had 2 hours of content and someone has just kind of reeled off everything in the first 5 minutes, and then you've got to adapt and find new things to talk about. And that's where the prep really comes in. If someone says something about a card, we can still talk about it later. We can bring it up and keep it interesting. Now, that's one of the reasons, guys, that we have slowed down the podcast or not made it a weekly thing anymore. There is another reason, and I'm going to be really honest with you guys. Personally, I don't think the game's in a very good spot. For the content that we do, the game isn't in a good spot. There isn't enough to talk about on a weekly basis. Let me put this in perspective for you. If you follow me on Twitter, if you watch my Twitch streams, you already know this. But to put this in perspective, the last podcast we did was 2 weeks ago. In that podcast, I said, I'm playing online grinding for Mike Bantam. If we loaded up the podcast today, if you're watching this right now, it's the same situation. And I have put in nearly 80 hours of game time into trying to get that card. I've won over 500 games online. I have spoken to 2K. I've done everything I can to try and get this issue resolved. But really, the last 2 weeks has just been a blind pursuit of 2 RNG cards. I have played non-stop to get those cards. I still don't have them. So what is there to talk about, really? Even over a 2-week period, there's not a huge amount to talk about. We're back in 2K21. We're back in the RNG mode. We actually had the podcast in 21, and ironically it stopped then for the same reason. Everything just became an endless RNG pursuit, which quite frankly, guys, just isn't interesting to talk about for 2 hours. It isn't. We can go on the podcast and we can sit there for an hour and complain, but that's not what the podcast was set up for. The podcast was set up for positivity, and look at all the tournaments and all the stuff and the banter that we have. It's supposed to be a positive thing, but for weeks, we've been in a cycle. We've been in a cycle of demotivation. It started with the bans, the DQs then happened. They obviously unfollowed a bunch of people on Twitter. So the community's is not in a good spot. Content's not in a good spot. And just in a nutshell, guys, there just isn't enough to talk about in the game right now to do a 2.5 hour podcast. There just isn't, I'm afraid. And we will do them periodically. Now, this is the important thing. This is the bit that's been missed. We will continue to do podcasts for the rest of the year. We'll probably do like 4 to 5 for the rest of the cycle. And like I said, 26th of March, we're going to be sitting down with Carlo, because again, we've got a reason there. We've got a reason. It's going to be post 250k. Hopefully he wins and we can, celebrate a little bit. But we need a reason. there needs to be content, there needs to be something. You know, we've spoken about the spotlights, the 2-week grinds, we had cards every single day, so it could fill out a podcast. We've just had nothing. We've just had nothing this season to talk about. Like, we just haven't. And I don't want to force it. I don't want to give you guys half-baked content because, you know, I just want to get the podcast out. Like I said, it's a huge sacrifice, and I don't want to sacrifice that time to give you guys like an inferior product. You know, a podcast where we're just skirting around and talking about random stuff because there's nothing really to talk about with the game. And you can say that at the end of the day, the podcast is us just chatting, and 2K's just a part of that, you know, but there needs to be some 2K in there. And right now, there's nothing really to talk about. There's certainly nothing I want to talk about. Hopefully we come out of this. If the content gets back to a place where it's exciting again, we might even get back to a point where we do it weekly by the end of this year, or, you know, next year we'll start it up again. But right now, it's just not the time, guys. The truth is, I'm demotivated. I don't think there's much to talk about. I think a lot of the guests that we've got on periodically are also pretty demotivated right now. A lot of the content creators are not in a great space. I mean, I'm sure you've seen other videos talking about this stuff. It's just not a good time at all for us right now. Now, the most important thing, guys, and the one thing I need to get, you know, out there in this video is just thank you. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you for turning it into something so amazing. Thank you to all the guests that have come on it. Thank you to the Waiting Room Gang, who I think are the best community in 2K. Thank you for all the support on Twitter. Like, the growth that I've got from this personally, and, you know, from a content perspective, has been amazing and humbling, and we appreciate you for all the support you've given us. Now, the guys, me, Josh, Ludes, Matt, we're all streaming every day. They're still making videos. You can still interact with us. We're always talking about the game. Come through on Twitch. All the links are in the description. If you want to find us, you can find us there. And you know, we can keep the conversation going outside of, you know, the podcast itself. But there will be another podcast soon. Now, in terms of me, I'm about to make a change, okay? So, I said in May, I've kind of said this whole year, in May, I'm going to go full-time as a content creator. And my plan was to do it with 2K. Right now, I'll be honest, guys, I don't think the game is in a place for me to really push and make a living out of content creation playing this game. So I'm going to do what I really want to do. And my big passion is like throwback gaming, right? The gaming before microtransactions and RNG and all these kind of gatekeeping methods companies have used to kind of gatekeep the fun kicked in. Before that, we used to just chill with our mates and we'd play. And if, like I said, if you've been watching my Twitch, even tonight, right now, actually, as soon as this goes live, I'm on Twitch playing Among Us with the guys. I'm playing with KillaJosh. I'm playing with a bunch of guys from the community. And we just have a great time doing it. We're not frustrated. We're not stressed out. We're just gaming for the sake of gaming. So I will be setting up another channel in May. Keep an eye on my Twitter if you want to catch what I'm doing. But I'm going to be doing like basic throwback gaming, like career modes, simulations, things like that. Just going back to just having fun. I'm not going to play any game modes that involve microtransactions or RNG or any other gatekeeping methods. Anything that involves putting more money into the game. The focus is going to be on either me having fun, just playing an arc of a game, or playing with my friends. We're going to play things like Sons of the Forest as well. Like I said, things like Among Us, like we're already doing. And we're just going to co-op game, couch game, go fully into that throwback meta of what gaming was before the internet kind of kicked in. I know I sound old. Before the internet kind of kicked in, and that evolved to the point we're at now, where the idea of rewards and a feeling of achievement, and more importantly, a feeling of fun, are largely gate-kept behind huge amounts of time or huge amounts of money. And I'm at a point in my life, guys, where I'm just not willing to do that. So, keep an eye out for my new channel. Please support the hosts. That, like I said, find their links in the description. Go show them some love. Find me on Twitch if you want to chat about the game. And we will do a few more podcasts. The next one will be on the 26th of March. One final thing before I go, guys. The tournament I'm going to push back a little bit. So the tournament was supposed to be at the end of March. We're actually going to push it back to May, I think. So we will be running a second tournament. It will be for charity again. We're going to have 64 content creators this time. It's going to be a salary cap. It's going to be a good time. So we're going to keep positivity going. We're going to keep doing positive things in the community. The three co-hosts, you know, I love those guys. They are some of my best friends. We're going to keep gaming together. We're going to keep playing together. And we will jump on a podcast now and then. But until next time, guys, thank you for all your support. And we'll catch you on the 26th.